Hey tribe, I wanted to share some insights today on imposter syndrome. Okay, I actually just learned this term, imposter syndrome, very recently, and it's very strange. In the last 2 weeks, I've had about 10 separate people that have brought this term to me, some through social media, some in person, and I started to be like, okay, this is something I'm meant to be talking about because it does usually things come into alignment for me when I'm meant to speak to it, and I start to get this from people or within myself. So I've been sitting on it for the last couple of weeks, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to say, and I realized that over the course of the last few weeks, this is actually something that I've dealt with. I just never really understood it as the term imposter syndrome, but now I really do. So I want to break this down for you guys today. So this video is for you if you struggle with imposter syndrome, you struggle with feeling like a fraud when you're trying something new or you're trying to step into a role that you just don't quite feel confident in, okay? So what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is essentially something that we feel internally when we do something that we have never done before, or that maybe we're new to, and we feel like we're a fraud. We feel like everybody can see that we're not really good at it, we're not experienced, so we immediately kind of start to be very critical of ourselves. So this is what imposter syndrome is, and it expresses itself in many different ways. And what I want to do with you guys today is explore these expressions and explore why this happens, what we can do about it. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, is breaking this down. So we get imposters. Well, actually, first off, I'm gonna tell a bit of a story. So this morning I went for my first run. Okay, ever. I've never ran before, and I went out on this trail near my house, and it was very busy. There was runners all along the path, and when I first started running, I got this really like awkward feeling in me, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like, there's all these people running and they're like all good at running, and I felt like a total dork, and I felt like I was totally being a fake runner, you know what I mean? And then it started to make me laugh because I was like, holy crap, I'm totally judging myself here for trying something new. And before I left my house, I made sure I looked like a runner. You know, I even like practiced running in the mirror, and I was like, why am I doing this? This is so dorky. So one thing I really realized, and I realized this on my run, is that a lot of us, we become so dependent on appearing like we are aligned to it, like appearing that we're good at it, that we don't actually do the work internally to get ourselves feeling confident to actually be in this experience, right? So I wanted to make sure I looked the part more than I actually felt the part running, because I was very concerned with the other judging me. Okay, so imposter syndrome can't exist without the other being present. If it's just you, you don't feel like an imposter because there's nobody there to judge you. But there's a back door to this, because really we think the world is judging us because we're judging ourselves. So the judgment is actually coming from within us. So I was judging myself that I didn't look like a runner and that I felt like a fraud. So we want to make sure we take the front door, which is going to be to quit judging ourselves, so we can allow ourselves to try new things, to have new experiences without feeling like we are fraudulent. Okay? So one of the underpinnings to this concept of imposter syndrome is shame. Okay, as you guys know, I work with shame. This is basically the primary thing I work with in my business. I've experienced a lot of shame in myself, so I understand it very, very well. So shame is the underpinning, because shame has a couple ways it expresses itself, and one of them is going to be who the heck do you think you are, right? It's an impending I am not good enough, or I am invalid. Okay, this is what we experience when we're shameful. And if we look at imposter syndrome, it's tied right into validity, right? We don't feel valid. We feel like a fraud, so we need to do things in our environment in order to feel valid. So that might be again, like making sure that I looked really like a real runner. I had the shoes, I had the glasses, I had, my water bottle. All this stuff made me appear that I wasn't an imposter, because it helps us, okay? But what that does is it just makes us become reliant on external validation. So I really want to highlight that shame plays such a strong role in this, because it essentially goes from shame is shame is the root, okay? And then if you look at how it expresses itself in self-critical thinking and the way we feel about ourselves, in I'm not good enough, I'm invalid, okay? And then what we do with that is we turn it into perfectionism, right? Because what's one of the best ways to not have to experience shame and the I'm not good enoughness of our experiences? We perfect our external world so we appear that we have it all together, so we never get called out for being an imposter, right? But we're doing it to ourselves, and that's the only thing that really matters. So when we're looking at wanting to move away from this imposter syndrome, we need to be addressing the underlying causes, which is the shame we're experiencing, the I'm not good enough, the perfectionism, but it comes down to allowing yourself the space to practice, right? To grow, to evolve. And that's where we struggle as human beings. We struggle being the amateur, being in practice mode, because we don't feel like we have it all together. And it's very easy to experience failure in that stage of development, right? The early stages of development, we feel it's very easy to experience failure. But what we need to understand is we need to kind of shift our relationship with failure. What does it actually mean to fail, right? When you have a failed relationship, that failed relationship teaches you what you want and what you don't. Okay, and then you can take that information into your next relationship. So as we move from a fixed mindset, right, which is failure is bad, we need to avoid it at all cost, into a growth mindset where failure can teach us about ourselves and what we need to feel happy and feel aligned. Okay, so for every time that we have experienced failure, we want to look at it as this is taking me one step closer to my authenticity, to aligning to my authenticity, because that one thing that we failed at, that we maybe weren't good at, it's allowing us to get better at it so we can see if we align to it. But sometimes we just fail at something because it's just not aligned to who we are. It's not meant for us. So therefore we can release it with love and not fear that we're not good enough. Okay? So we really want to learn how to self-validate. That's what this is about. Inner validation will always trump external validation. And this is a big, big thing that's happening in my life right now. And over the course of the last few years is really working at developing an internal sense of self and not relying on the external world to tell me that I'm good looking or that I'm athletic or that I'm, can be happy or all of these things, right? It's all got to be derived from within ourselves. And that's not to say we can't relish in external validation, because it feels really nice when somebody compliments us or tells us that we're worthy or valid, but we can't become reliant on that over and allow that to trump our ability to do this for ourselves. Okay, so this is a big part of the work of healing shame. And I think imposter syndrome is a really cool way cool, I know for some people not, but for me it's fascinating how it expresses itself through this imposter syndrome. But when we can kind of backstep and backtrack and we can learn that, we are perfectly imperfect. We do not need to be perfect. And when you think about it, when people are perfect or portraying perfection in your presence, how do you feel about that? What does that feel like for you when somebody's projecting perfection in your presence? I want you to think about that, because for me, I find it's very invalidating from my experience, because they're not being aligned to themselves. And when I'm trying to align to myself, I feel like I have to therefore become perfect in their presence as well. Okay, so when we give ourselves and others the grace to be perfectly imperfect, we're very relatable. Okay, and people are drawn to that. So allow yourself to try new things. Allow yourself to live by the motto of practice makes progress. Okay, I love that one. Not perfection. Practice makes progress, because we are always learning and growing and evolving as human beings. That's never going to end. And the idea of perfection is just a facade and a mask that we wear that creates division between us and other people and experiencing our authenticity, but also the authenticity of others, which the authenticity of others gives us permission to be authentic ourselves, and we're also giving people that same gift. So the more real we are, the more relatable we are, and the more we can get closer to being our authentic self in the fullest expression. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.